Is it true hoarding or false hoarding? Is there such a thing? That question has been on my mind lately. The definition of hoarding, according to books, and the DSM, according to the books, it seems to me is sufficiently wishy-washy and multifaceted that almost anyone can qualify at one time or another. I remember I was moving from my university residence back to the city via my mom's place. I temporarily landed at my mom's place with a whole lot of my stuff. And the living room definitely resembled what anyone would call a giant, messy, inaccessible hoard at that time. But that was just a collision of two different apartments in one. And it eventually got moved apart without any further inconvenience. All these definitions and different scenarios, different types, different facets of it are such that I think there could be zero common elements between two separate cases, and I would still call it hoarding. The specialists, therapists, consultants, book authors, you got a hoard, you are hoarding, you are a hoarder, they would say. And yet, is there or is there not an active acquisition habit? Is there or is there not emotional attachment, as they call it, to all these objects? I know for sure I don't have it, emotional attachment. My attachment is largely logical and informational, and sure, obsessive compulsive in places. Those some of those are compulsions, some of those are obsessions, but nonetheless, I don't feel there is any emotional attachment. There is no distress, as they call it, from no emotional distress, at least, as they describe it in books. It does not change with time. If something was discarded wrongly, that the emotional and logical components don't change with time for me. A thing that was discarded wrongly years ago, I still feel bad about it. I'm still unhappy about it. I still remember it to exactly the same degree. So I definitely disagree that I personally have emotional attachment. I call it logical and informational, but I also don't have an active acquisition habit. I can walk up and down a dollar store, or any store for that matter, and buy precisely nothing without any trouble whatsoever. I can look at everything in great detail, but I will not buy anything because I don't need to, for various reasons, which I also explained separately, some of them. So, and yet, a significant other comes in and says, there's a hoard, you are a hoarder. A consultant, a therapist comes in. They also start treatment, dealing with it like with a hoard. So, and yet, it's a whole different degree and a whole different game compared to, say, some elderly, senile person. And another distinction is, I believe, with favorable conditions, time, energy, lack of distractions, lack of stress, I, or someone like me, would be well in a position to clean up the hoard perfectly well, to not admit any new materials, to process what has been piled up, to sort it, to organize it, to consume materials, to process bits that represent information to the point where it would be no longer classified as a hoard by any definition. So, is that true hoarding or false hoarding? I have my doubts. I think there's definitely much that is wrong with all of these definitions and labels. How can you describe something as a condition, classify something as a condition, and a health condition, a mental condition, a psychological condition, when there can be zero common elements between two cases? That does not make sense to me. That does not add up. So, intuitively, tentatively, I would assume that there is indeed such a thing as true hoarding and false hoarding. Perhaps I would delineate it as someone who could, given favorable condition, get their stuff under control, versus someone who couldn't, who would continue acquiring, continue consuming space, fail or be unable to, or refuse to organize, and so on and so forth. So that's what I think. In this project, this quest to find, identify, verbalize, and share insights and methods to mitigate this, I think there's a chance to be helping both of those categories. Perhaps false hoarding more than true hoarding, but I believe there is improvement to be made. And a second related insight I made was, I think it's largely an information problem. It's less about stuff and more about information. Perhaps not completely, but it's more about information for false hoarding, but there is definitely a large degree of information-related issues in both. Now, I'm an IT guy. I'm a programmer, a system administrator, databases, all that jazz. So you could think, yes, it's natural for me to think of everything as an information problem, because, well, when all you have is a hammer, every problem starts to look like a nail, and my hammer is information handling. So, and yet, I really do believe this. And I'll demonstrate with one example for a start. Let's say you are in need of some tool. Let's say a hammer, a particular hammer, and it got misplaced in the hoard, or in some sort of clutter, in a very cluttered garage. Now, you might spend half a day searching for it, fail to find it, and then be forced, because you do need to complete some work with that, be forced to go to a store and buy another one, perhaps an identical one, spending half a day searching for it and some amount of money, and then some additional space to store the new one, only to find the original one a month and a half later. So now you have two, and the return period on the new one has now expired. How is this an information problem? there was one tiny bit of information that was crucial to handling this in this way or better, and that is, where was the original hammer? What happened to it? Where was it? And perhaps the truth is, during some reshuffling, during some attempt at a cleanup or a move, or you had to shove things out of the way to accommodate something or other, or to do something, it got shoved into some drawer or box or some place not native to it, and then that fact completely slipped your mind. So there's this small bit of information, where's the original hammer, that not having it caused all of this trouble. And you simply didn't think of making a record or a note of that. In the shuffle, you didn't have time, you didn't think it would come to this. You'd think you would have cleaned up, or organized things better by the time you needed it, and so on and so forth. And I think, by the way, a solution to that would be having a good organization system and including some sort of inventory tracking system to keep good track of your stuff, where everything's supposed to be, and combined with actively overseeing that it goes there. So that's just one example where a huge problem resulted from not having a bit of information, and it could have been solved with a bit of information, or generally an information discipline of keeping a good physical and informational organization system. That's just one obvious example. Generally, it's an information problem in so many different ways. Knowing how to organize, knowing where things are, having the right methods and tools and skills and systems in place to handle this information problem better. Having information on what you have, having information on where you have it, and then on a higher level, why you have it is worth considering. Having a better perspective on the realistic usefulness of this to you, or on ways to use something, how much of it you have. There's also these mementos, these keepsakes type of items that definitely touch on the information aspect, and they are in fact being tokens, representatives of information. Mementos from a vacation that remind you that you went on this vacation, and where you got this particular item and under what circumstances. That's all information. And I could go on like that forever, but I am fairly confident that it is to a large degree an information problem, not problem with stuff, and as such it can be solved as an information problem by information related solutions, and which again I am very well positioned to be tackling, being an IT guy, a programmer, and I have actually my own systems that I've been developing to that effect and using successfully to solve just these kinds of problems, among them tracking items. Need to have suitable information systems, need to have discipline, and this may well alleviate the much of these problems Anyway, this is all very much food for thought and an open-ended question. I'll be examining and sharing more of methods, insights, and so on. But I wanted to get this out there, and perhaps other people will chime in with their thoughts. I've also been thinking whether hoarding and hoards should be considered merely a technical condition, separate from whatever compulsions, obsessions, attachments, and whatever other emotional, psychological aspects might be involved. In saying all this, by the way, I don't mean to imply that people shouldn't seek appropriate psychological or medical help, counseling. By all means, you should. But at the same time, I have a feeling that often these fine professionals aren't suitably equipped to handle those other informational aspects. In any case, I believe we should always look for the root causes and underlying issues that lead to the technical condition of hoarding and hoard, and only then can we determine how to best approach this, whatever that involves. I'm a technical guy, so I have a knack for solving problems, and I think these are largely problems that can be solved to at least improve the situation significantly. I'm not any kind of health-related professional, as I mentioned in the intro, not even close. I am not qualified to be advising or not advising anything health or psychological related. By all means, consult the appropriate professionals. All of this is just my opinions. That's it. Bye for now.